50K is still 50K, and I'm looking forward to it. I know the course, so it's one I know I can do, but it's still going to be a long day.
Try rock.
Yeah, I'm
My name is Ron Bowman. I'm 62 years old, and I live in Annapolis, Maryland. Rosaryville Trail Runs on 22nd of July is going to be my 100th Ultra. I'm the race director for that, so I've worked out with some friends to kind of take over a lot of the race directing responsibilities, timing and that sort of thing, and getting things kicked off, because Rosaryville I designed as an opportunity for those who are kind of tempted by trail runs to get into it and be associated with and be able to run the same trails as veteran ultramarathoners. So it's a 10K, a 10 mile, a 25K, and a 50K all in one. Through lines are pre-registered. A through L.
I got L.
A through L over here.
Okay, really, that was a bad decision.
The rest of you on this side.
Thank you.
Probably the most quoted thing that I say is that pain is temporary, pride is forever. Put on that on the back of our singlets for 15 years. It's on the back of just about every shirt that I race in. I can't tell how many times that I've worn that, and during races, people have come up passing me and said how much that has inspired them, and they think about that and that's their mantra for getting them through the rest of the race. It really encapsulates a lot of things that we do in this endurance sports. The pain is there. Everybody has a pain limit, but it's temporary. And if you can push your limits in that pain and suffering, then the rewards are just as equally as satisfying, and those rewards will last forever. So I think that's kind of encapsulates my philosophy of life. My first ultra was the JFK 50, and that was in 1984. Shortly after I started doing marathons, again at the urging of a friend, we thought we'd try that. I did JFK that first year in 10 hours and 17 minutes, which wasn't bad at that time, but I finished it and felt like I could do more. So that was one where I finished it and think I'd like to come back, and I think I could do better at that. Of course, those were in the years when I was in my mid-30s, and I felt I could do anything, even with just a little bit more training. So that was kind of natural, and that's when I got into the JFK streak, if you will, and kept coming back, and I trained for that, and then I would pick up people who were interested in it and train with them, and I think I've probably encouraged or supported 45 or 50 first-time ultra runners in doing the JFK. A lot of them would start out crewing for me to see what it was like, and I managed to convince them that it wasn't as bad as I looked when I finished, and that they could in fact do it, and then they would come back the next year and do it themselves. So that's one of the things I'm pleased with, is that I've encouraged a lot of runners to go from road runs to trail runs, and a lot of them will not go back to road runs now once they start a trail run. My heritage is Native American. I'm a member of the Potawatomi tribe. Our reservation is in Shawnee, Oklahoma. I was raised on and near the Navajo reservation in New Mexico, so I had a close affinity to some of the traditions there. Did my heritage have an influence on my sports? That's hard to say. I would think probably yes, but I never really correlated it until later. It was just something that I grew up enjoying and doing. I think I was around it, and my grandparents and my parents certainly encouraged it, but it wasn't necessarily because of the heritage. It was just something I loved to do, which was run. But then in studying it and in talking, it was found out it was just a natural part of the tribal heritage. Well before they found horses, and even afterwards, they were doing marathons and trail runs equivalent of what we pay to do now on a daily basis.
You're doing 50 kids.
My earliest memory is running with my dog Pepe through the sagebrush chasing jackrabbits. We thought that was great fun. I don't think we ever caught one, but it was my earliest, fondest memory of running, and running has been a part of my life ever since in one form or another. I grew up doing the same sports most kids, baseball. I got into wrestling in high school at the urging of a friend and got pretty good at it, was state champion my senior year in high school, but running was always part of that. Track was probably my first love for that reason. And I was, I think, a sophomore before I actually realized that our coaches were having us run laps, not as a reward, but as a punishment, because running was just something I loved to do anyway. I ran at the Naval Academy, but not on any of the teams because I had to focus on my academics at that time. And I wrestled for a couple of years at the academy, but also realizing I could either wrestle or I could spend my time and graduate became the priority. So running has been part of my life from the beginning. Looking over the marathons and triathlons and ultras that I've done, the most difficult one, my first 100 miler, I'll have to put at or near the top, Vermont 100. Going into it, I trained well. I ended up by myself for a lot of it. I got blisters that really were difficult to overcome. I came into the 65-mile aid station and decided it was time to take my shoes off. I knew it was bad when the medical technician peeled my sock back and winced when he saw my feet. I taped it up a little bit, put the sock back on, and by that time it was numb. It hurts up to a point and then it just doesn't get any worse. Got through that last 20 miles. That was tough. Making that decision to get up and get back out on there was one of the toughest decisions I'd had because I didn't know what was ahead. You can get up, so take one more step and take another step and then jog a little bit and see what happens. And I was able to finish in 28 hours, a little over 28 hours, and that was one of the most satisfying events. Hawaii Ironman was probably, again, either equal to or just as difficult, because there I had no idea what I was getting into. Getting that letter that said you've been accepted to the Ironman, I almost had tears in my eyes sitting in the bed. My wife, I remember saying, whoop, there goes the summer. And there were no clubs at that point. I trained on my own from what I could pick up from a couple of the other triathletes in the area. Went to Hawaii and was just awed and felt I have no reason in the world for being here. And I was scared shitless. I got in the swim and got comfortable. Got so comfortable I didn't sight as much as I should have. And I looked up once and there were no kayakers, there were no other caps around, and I was swimming towards the beach. Found out that I was off course. I kind of swam parallel to the course and found out I swam an extra 15 minutes because I'd gotten off course. I got on the bike and I got out on the bike, and 20 miles in or so, I remember coming up over a rise and looking at the bikers ahead of me, leaning over at a 45-degree angle because of the crosswinds were blowing them there. And then getting out on the run and thinking, oh, now I'm in my element. I can run now, and I know I can do 26 miles. Could I keep going fast enough to stay ahead of the cutoff was the concern. And I remember coming out of the energy flats and matching up with Sister Mary Bader, who's infamous for doing Hawaii 20 times or more, and 10, 12 years older than I. And I came up next to her and we were running side by side, and I said, I don't know if we're gonna make it. And as calm as ever, she said, yeah, you're gonna make it, you're doing fine, just keep doing what you're doing. And that gave me as much a sense of relief as anything. A lot of the tenseness from the fear of missing that cutoff eased from my body and actually gave me a little bit of a lift and a little bit of an energy boost. So I have to thank her for getting me through that last miles. She finished a little bit behind me, but I finished it. And I swear that coming down a Leahy Drive is one of the most memorable things I've had in my life. Get a little emotional about it, because they started playing the Navy anthem. So I don't think my feet touched the ground that last quarter mile. What I get is, which is harder, an Ironman or a 100-mile? If you're looking at it strictly on that kind of basis, a 100-miler is much more difficult than an Ironman. A 100-miler runs 28 hours. For me, an Ironman is 14 to 16 hours. A 100-miler or trail runs focus a lot more on the lower body. An Ironman is kind of spread out over the whole body. So as equivalency, maybe a 50-miler would kind of equal an Ironman. I am not an organized religion type of person. Never was, never expect to be. I consider myself as spiritual as the next person, as anyone. And that goes back to my early days when I had that sense of freedom in chasing my dog, chasing jackrabbits through the sagebrush. And I think there's a spiritual aspect to that. My grandparents talked about it, alluded to it, and I kind of didn't understand it, and I finally began to start picking it up when I started doing ultra races and endurance races, and particularly when I started doing trail running, which put me so much more in contact with nature and the sense of being a part of that, what was around you, the association with the wolf and those kind of associations, putting you much closer to nature, which is, that's the spirit part of it, is realizing that you're just a part of something larger, and by running through the trees and putting yourself on the trails, you get that sense of being a part of something larger. So it is absolutely spiritual for me. I get to think no place else would I'd rather be, and nobody else would I'd rather be with than the people I'm running with at that point. And that is, your feet are 6 inches off the ground, you're feeling great. You know you're not going to feel so great pretty soon, but at that moment, you're as close to a spiritual epiphany as you will ever be. Ron Miles, we'll go for a run, and we'll start out, well, let's just do 10 miles, and somehow it always ends up to be 12 or 13 or 14 miles, and we'll kid about, we had a few extra Ron miles in there. I've always had the urge to push myself endurance-wise. So the competition with myself is now, can I do it one more time? Can I do a 50-miler one more time? Can I improve on my time? Can I improve on my record? I've gone away from PRs to 5-year PRs. Can I do it quicker than my fastest PR in the last 5 years? Not accepting defeat or giving up will push you into situations that you haven't been before. So some people could see that as a negative, because you can get yourself into situations you're not sure how to deal with physically. And I see that as a learning process. Knowing your body, I think, is one of the mantras, or one of the things that I try to instill in the people that I come across and talk to. The more you know your body and how it's going to react, the more you can adapt that to your goals. My strength as an athlete, I think, has to be my persistence. I don't give up easily. My attitude is a strength in that it's not as obsessed maybe as I once was, as some people will say, or my wife may still say. I'm going to get out of an event what I put into it. You start to say, why am I doing this? Why do I keep getting to this point where I'm considering dropping out because it hurts so much? You know, that's the answer, because I enjoy the satisfaction of finishing enough to push through that. At this point now, I think I owe it to others to continue that philosophy. And it's not so much that, oh, I have to finish this because of my friends and things like that, because that'll only get you so far. But it is a piece, and whatever you can draw on to get you over those tough points is helpful. Being able to have a passion for something is what makes us human and makes me happy that I've found a passion. Being able to see my grandkids participate in sports and seeing that they have that kid's love for it, that makes me happy. Being able to swim when I want to with my endless pool, that makes me happy. Being able to see my friends meet goals and accomplishment and see tears in their eyes when they cross the finish line, that makes me happy. Seeing my wife being supportive when I go out and tell her 2 days before that I'm going to go run 30 miles this weekend. Seeing the acceptance, that makes me happy. Being able to continue doing this and being blessed with a body that has allowed me to do this and get to this point makes me appreciative and happy and grateful. Running on the trails with my dog, Bo, that makes me happy. Running makes me happy.
Awesome job, guys.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Hey, thanks, Rod.